Think about a period when people took concretes that contained radioactive components as a treatment for illnesses. Sounds crazy, right? Still, it was a reality for Eben Byers, the man who drank radium. As if to promote itself as being good for Byers' health, it led him down a path of suffering and poor health. First of all, before turning to facts and dreadful stories, let us discuss a brief history of radium and its properties, which at one time were healing, but at the same time deadly. History of radium. Radium was first discovered by Marie along with her husband Pierre Curie in 1898 by isolating it from the uranium ore known as uraninite in the form of radium chloride. They announced their discovery just 5 days later at the French Academy of Sciences. In 1910, Marie Curie, along with André Louis Debierne, succeeded in isolating radium in its metallic form through the electrolysis of radium chloride. Following this breakthrough, radium began to be produced in larger quantities in countries like Austria, the United States, and Belgium, although global production has always remained small. It captivated both scientists and the public with its glowing properties and rumored health benefits. This element's ability to emit alpha, beta, and gamma radiation positioned it as a groundbreaking tool in medical and industrial fields. In medicine, radiation therapy revolutionized cancer treatment by precisely targeting and destroying cancerous cells, offering hope to countless patients. Additionally, radium has been used in radiography to diagnose illnesses and in the sterilization of medical equipment, underscoring its vital role in modern healthcare. However, radium's darker side emerged when it began appearing in consumer products marketed as cure-alls. Radithor, a tonic with radium added and promoted as a cure-all, was one such product. Bailey Radium Laboratories in New Jersey produced Radithor. William J. Bailey, who dropped out of Harvard Medical School, created the company and pretended to be a doctor. He sold Radithor as a groundbreaking treatment, going so far as to call it a cure for the living dead. Bailey and his team of chemists believed that while high doses of radium were lethal, small, diluted amounts could be beneficial. In 1918, Radithor was launched across the United States. The supposed benefits were vague, with claims that it enhanced the vital processes of the body. Nevertheless, people flocked to buy it, and doctors eagerly prescribed it. How does radium enter the body? Ingestion, inhalation, and in rare instances, radiation emissions are the 3 ways that radium can enter the body. If radium can be absorbed through the skin, this is unknown. When inhaled radium dust or gas can remain in the lungs for several months before gradually entering the bloodstream and circulating throughout the body, with some accumulating in the bones. Most of it will be expelled in feces if radium is swallowed, such as through contaminated water or food. A small amount may enter the bloodstream and travel to various parts of the body. Some of the ingested radium will be excreted daily through feces and urine, while a portion may persist in the bones for the individual's lifetime. Currently, no medical test can accurately measure the amount of radium exposure or predict potential health effects. However, some tests can detect if radium has been ingested or measure the total radioactivity in the body. Furthermore, exhaled air contains radon, a byproduct of radium. These tests are usually not available at most medical offices and require specialist equipment. In the 1920s, affluent entrepreneur Eben Byers succumbed to Radithor's charms, underscoring the dangers of radium use without proper supervision. Eben Byers. Ebenezer McBurney Byers was born on April 12, 1880, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was the son of Alexander Byers, a wealthy industrialist who owned a mill and employed around 2,500 people making wrought iron pipes. Alexander also held numerous other positions of power, including being president of a bank and chairman of several companies. Byers was an American socialite, sportsman, and industrialist, known for his achievements in golf and his tragic death due to the effects of a radium-based patent medicine. Byers won the U.S. Amateur Golf Championship in 1906 and was also recognized as the champion in 1905, having previously been a runner-up in 1902 and 1903. He was educated at St. Paul's School and Yale College, where he was a member of the Yale Bulldogs golf team. Byers later became chairman of the Girard Iron Company, established by his father, industrialist Alexander Byers. In 1927, Byers suffered an arm injury from a fall while traveling on a railway sleeping berth. To alleviate his persistent pain, he was advised to use Radithor on the recommendation of his physiotherapist, Charles Clinton Moyer, a patent medicine made by William J. A. Bailey. Byers quickly became obsessed with the tonic, consuming up to 3 bottles a day from December 1927, and continuing this regimen for 2 years. His enthusiasm for Radithor was so intense that he shared it with friends, believing it would boost his vitality and overall well-being. More than 1,000 bottles were drank by him during his treatment. 1 microgram of mesothorium and 1 microgram of radium, diluted in water, were found in each bottle of Radithor. Given our current knowledge of radiation toxicity, we can conclude that even at levels as low as 10 micrograms, radium can be hazardous. However, he noted diminishing effects, so in October 1930, he stopped using it after taking about 1,400 doses. He then experienced significant weight loss, headaches, and severe dental issues. In 1931, the Federal Trade Commission requested his testimony regarding Radithor, but Byers, too ill to travel, had his statement taken at home. The lawyer who visited reported that Byers had undergone extensive jawbone removal and severe bone deterioration. Byers died on March 31, 1932, at just 51 years old, from complications attributed to radiation poisoning, a term used at the time, though his death was caused by cancers resulting from radium exposure. Radium's danger lies in its ability to mimic calcium, becoming incorporated into bone tissue and emitting harmful radiation that causes irreversible damage to bones and surrounding structures. He had about 36 micrograms of radium in his bones, far exceeding the fatal dose of 2 micrograms. His remains were so radioactive that he was buried in a lead-lined coffin. The fallout from Byers' tragic death led to increased regulation of radioactive substances by the Food and Drug Administration, effectively ending the radioactive patent medicine industry. In 1965, scientists exhumed Byers' remains for research, finding them still dangerously radioactive, more so than expected. Given radium's long half-life of 1,600 years, Byers' remains will remain hazardous for a considerable time. After the exhumation, Byers was reburied in his lead-lined coffin, continuing to rest in a faint yet perilous glow. When Byers' case came to light, it sparked widespread outrage and concern. The public was alarmed by the exposure to radium, a substance that had been marketed as a miracle cure and used in various consumer products. Media coverage played a significant role in bringing the dangers of radium to public attention, highlighting the severe health risks and the tragic consequences for those affected. Stories of suffering and negligence were widely reported, leading to a surge in public interest and demand for safer practices. The Wall Street Journal marked Mr. Byers' death with a striking headline: "The radium water worked fine until his jaw dropped off." Because of this headline, the tale became one of the most read reports of the time and was eventually included in several other academic papers. Byers' terrible end highlights the need for rigorous testing and regulation and serves as a sobering lesson about the dangers of unbridled scientific zeal. The radium business was significantly impacted by the close examination of Byers' case. When the risks were made public, the use of radium-based products significantly decreased. The implementation of more stringent safety regulations and procedures for the management of radioactive materials was pressured by regulatory organizations. The incident spurred the development of safer alternatives and forced numerous companies to phase out radium from their goods. Radium, while promising in its potential, caused significant harm due to its misuse. Due to its widespread use in commonplace products like glow-in-the-dark watch faces and luminescent paints, there have been many reports of radiation poisoning and, in certain circumstances, the deaths of unwary customers and employees. Let's now examine another moving illustration: the tragic tale of the Radium Girls. Catherine Schaub. In the early 1900s, during the height of the Industrial Age, Factories were booming, and cities were the place to be for anyone looking to make a living. The Schaub family, German immigrants seeking a better life, moved to America, and among their children was 14-year-old Catherine Schaub. Catherine dreamed of becoming a professional writer one day, but her family was struggling, so she had to drop out of school and find work. Catherine's friends once informed her about a brand new, unique employment in the city, a watch studio. Catherine was intrigued. A watch studio? It wasn't your average factory job. It was mostly young women who worked there, making way more money than at other jobs. The task? Painting watch dials with a small brush so that the numbers would glow in the dark. To Catherine, this sounded like a dream come true. Easy work and great pay. Ready to go, Catherine excitedly entered the watch studio in Newark, New Jersey on February 1st, 1917. She was astounded by what she saw when the forewoman gave her a tour of the area. Women worked so fast that their hands were a blur as they comfortably sat at their stations in rows. However, Catherine was more interested in the luminous green paint they were using, which was derived from radium, than she was in the dials. The U.S. Radium Corporation was the top seller of these timepieces. Radium was very popular at the time. People were completely enamored with it and thought it had nearly mystical qualities. And it wasn't just beautiful, it was incredibly valuable. 1 gram of radium was worth $120,000 back then. That's over $2 million today. Working in the watch studio was seen as a glamorous job. Each painter had her own supply of radium paint. The workers mixed powdered radium with water and adhesive, creating a greenish-white substance that glowed in the dark. The company even trademarked the color, calling it undark. Since radium came in powder form, it spread everywhere when the jars were opened, and over time, it filled the air and settled on the workers, making them glow. Catherine didn't mind. In fact, she loved it. She literally got to shine while getting paid, and that glow made her feel special. Catherine was surrounded by other girls her age, most of whom were also immigrants. She quickly bonded with her co-workers, and they became her best friends. Let's talk about the man behind the factory Catherine worked at, Dr. Sabin von Sochacki. He was the one who created the undark paint that made the watches glow. Initially, his goal was to make a little extra money to fund his medical research on radium. However, when he realized how much more profitable it was to sell glow-in-the-dark paint, he abandoned his research in favor of building a business. In his first year, he sold only 2,000 watches, but by 1917, he was selling millions annually. Dr. Sabin became highly respected for his knowledge of radium and his work ethic. Magazines hailed him as one of the world's greatest scientific minds. In fact, he had learned much about radium from the famous Marie Curie and her husband Pierre. However, during his time studying with the Curie, Pierre had warned him about radium's dangers, famously saying he would never stay in a room with a kilogram of radium because it could burn the skin off his body, blind him, or even kill him. But Dr. Sabin, perhaps brushing it off, carried on with his fascination for radium. Dr. Sabin had a personal encounter with radium's deadly power when a tiny speck of it got under the nail of his left index finger. The pain became so unbearable that he cut off the tip of his finger. Imagine that! Despite knowing the dangers, Dr. Sabin couldn't resist the glow of radium. He'd sit in the dark, holding glass tubes of radium in his bare hands, completely mesmerized. This was even after he had cut off part of his finger. His love for radium persisted despite repeated warnings from people like Thomas Edison, who had experienced the harsh effects of radiation himself through X-ray experiments. Meanwhile, at the factory, the dial painters were unknowingly sealing their fate. To paint the small, detailed numbers on the watches, they used fine brushes. But when the bristles would fray, they were instructed to use a technique called lip pointing, a method where they would wet the brushes with their lips to keep them sharp and precise. The problem? The brushes were covered in radium, meaning these women were ingesting tiny amounts of the toxic substance multiple times a day. It wasn't like the girls were careless. They asked if the process was safe. They saw the glowing paint and even noticed that some of the women training them had sores around their mouths. But their supervisors reassured them that there was no danger. So, in 1918, Catherine continued working at the factory, enjoying her job, even as her skin started to break out in what she assumed were regular teenage pimples. But things were about to take a dark turn. As a 15-year-old, Catherine chalked her acne up to hormones, but other strange symptoms were happening around the factory. Some of the girls developed stiff necks, sores, and rashes, while others experienced back problems. It seemed like every girl had some mysterious health issue. Catherine, growing concerned, went to see a doctor. After an exam, the doctor reassured her that her pimples were probably just due to hormones. But then, his tone changed. He asked where she worked, and when Catherine told him, the doctor explained that her blood had changed. The symptoms resembled a disease known as phossy jaw, caused by phosphorus poisoning, which could lead to your entire jaw falling off. Naturally, Catherine freaked out and told her friends at work, setting off a panic. The women demanded answers, asking if there was phosphorus in the paint or if radium was dangerous. The supervisors told them to relax, insisting it was just hormones. Demand for these watches skyrocketed, especially after soldiers returned home with these fashionable timepieces. The company grew, but to meet the demand, they cut half the workforce and made those who remained work 7 days a week. Catherine, now 16, started feeling the effects of the increased workload. Her legs ached, she was constantly tired, and she was getting sick more often. Finally, in 1920, Catherine quit, hoping to move on with her life. Other people also perished from similar exposure. Amelia Maggia. Another known victim was Amelia Maggia, who was born on December 21, 1896, in Orange, Essex County, New Jersey, U.S. She served at the Radium Luminous Materials Corporation and later United States Radium Corporation in Orange, New Jersey. She was the middle child among 7 sisters in the Maggia family. The given names of the girls are Louise, Clara, Albina, Molly, Quinta, Irma, and Josephine. Albina, Molly, Quinta, and Irma imported from Italy, and all 4 of them worked at a radium dial factory. Molly was one of the best painters of dials, and yet she had a terrible price to pay for her talents. In the early 1920s, the effects of radium exposure were not considered dangerous, and the substance was used in factories by women. The young women, including Molly, liked the light coming from radium on their clothes and also applied it on their nails and the dress buttons. However, the initial feelings did not last long, and signs of long-term radiation sickness soon started to manifest. These symptoms included bone cancer, anemia, lesions, and sores. The first of the radium dial painters to die of radiation poisoning was Amelia Maggia. The woman had been employed in the factory for close to 10 years and was recognized for her hardworking nature. And then, her health problems started to worsen when she first went to the doctor due to toothache. After a tooth extraction, there was still pain in her jaw. On a normal checkup one day, she found out that the lower jaw and the tissue adjacent to the jawbone were severely damaged and had undergone radiation-induced necrosis. As for Amelia, her health deteriorated with severe anemia, lesions, and infections. She died at the age of only 25 years on September 12, 1922, because of a cut of the jugular vein, and she died bleeding in front of her family. Unfortunately, she died, and at that time, they blamed it on syphilis, which was not the true cause. Her burial was conducted at Rosedale Cemetery in Montclair, Essex County in New Jersey, USA. Known as the Radium Girls, these young ladies were employed in factories at the beginning of the 20th century. The radium dust that covered their skin, hair, and clothes made them famous for their brilliant appearance. They had no idea that this seemingly harmless job would cause them great pain. As was previously noted, radium is a radioactive material that generates strong radiation that can enter the human body and cause severe damage to tissues and organs. To ensure they would be the life of the party after their shifts, they frequently donned their best clothes to work. Some even applied the radium paint to their teeth for a radiant smile. Unfortunately, the women ingested radium as part of their job. Over time, they began experiencing alarming symptoms, including severe pain, necrosis of the jaw, and unexplained fractures. Their bodies were essentially disintegrating from within due to the relentless exposure to radiation. Some reports even describe cases where women lost an entire set of teeth within just 2 weeks. Imagine the horror of seeing your own bones glow in the dark, a grotesque testament to radiation poisoning. As more radium girls fell ill, exhibiting similar symptoms, their employer continued to deny any connection between the illnesses and their work. Facing declining business amid mounting controversy, the company finally commissioned an independent study, which confirmed that radium exposure was the cause of the painters' deaths. However, the company rejected the findings and commissioned further studies that contradicted this conclusion, discrediting the ill workers. In 1925, pathologist Harrison Martland developed a test that definitively proved radium was poisoning the workers from within. Despite attempts by the radium industry to discredit Martland's findings, the radium girls persisted in their fight. Although many were near death, they sought to help others still working with radium. Attorney Raymond Barry took their case in 1927. With many women having only months to live, they were forced into an out-of-court settlement. Nonetheless, their plight brought international attention to radium safety. The legacy of the Radium Girls stands as a powerful reminder of the human cost of corporate negligence and greed. Their sacrifice not only spurred crucial advancements in workplace protection and public health awareness, but also left scars that continue to remind us of the need for vigilance and regulation. Their case was among the first to hold a company accountable for the health and safety of its employees, leading to major reforms and the establishment of the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Modern-day relevance. Modern scientific and technological developments have produced a more thorough knowledge of the health concerns connected to dangerous substances. Regulatory frameworks now mandate thorough testing and transparent reporting before products are approved for consumer use. There's a strong emphasis on monitoring and ensuring safety, driven by past mistakes and ongoing advocacy for public health. Strict regulation and testing are essential to averting health emergencies like those brought on by radium. Thorough testing guarantees that goods are secure and efficient before they are delivered to customers. To ensure public safety, regulatory agencies, like the FDA in the US and other comparable groups across the globe, supervise the approval and surveillance of health goods. This meticulous methodology aids in the early detection of possible hazards, minimizes damage, and upholds customer confidence in health-related products and sectors. Thanks for joining us today as we explored the terrifying effects of radium on the human body. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel and drop your suggestions for other chilling medical cases in the comments below. Until next time, stay healthy, keep smiling, and see you in the next one.